At exactly 12:53 a.m. on October 15, 2018, a frantic 911 call came from the Closs family home in Barron, Wisconsin. No one spoke. The dispatcher heard a struggle, some kind of commotion, and then silence. When deputies arrived just 4 minutes later, what they discovered would send shockwaves across America. Minutes later, police found the door to the Closs home blasted open and inside. A nightmare. This is the story of Jayme Closs. Jayme Lynn Closs was an average 13-year-old girl, sweet, shy, with a close-knit family. Her parents, James and Denise, were hard-working middle-class folks. Jayme was their only child. Jayme Lynn Closs was born on July 13, 2005, and lived in the small town of Barron, Wisconsin. She attended Riverview Middle School in Barron, where she was in the 8th grade at the time of her abduction. Teachers described her as kind-hearted, quiet, and polite. She loved pets, spending time outdoors, and just being around her parents. Her family life was stable. Her father worked at the Jennie-O Turkey Store, a major local employer, and her mother worked in the same facilities office. There was no drama. No enemies. No red flags. But she had unknowingly caught the attention of a stranger just once, and that was enough. Weeks before the crime, an unknown man had seen Jayme Closs stepping off her school bus. That single moment planted a dangerous obsession. He didn't know her. He wasn't from her town. But from that day on, he made a horrifying decision, one that would take weeks to carefully plan. He took extreme measures to avoid detection, removing his car's interior lights, swapping out license plates, and even shaving his head so he wouldn't leave behind a single strand of evidence. Then, just after midnight on October 15, 2018, he made his move. Armed with a shotgun, he approached the Closs home and blasted through the front door. Jayme's father, James, tried to defend his family but was killed instantly. Inside the bathroom, Denise Closs had locked herself in with her daughter, trying to protect her. But it wasn't enough. The intruder forced Denise to bind Jayme's mouth shut and then shot her, too. After abducting Jayme Closs, the man drove nearly 70 miles north to a secluded cabin in the woods of Gordon, Wisconsin. This wasn't a home, it was a trap. Hidden deep in the forest, surrounded by thick trees and silence, the cabin was completely cut off from the outside world. And it was here, in this isolated prison, that Jayme would spend the next 88 days of her life. She wasn't locked in a room. She was kept under his bed, literally. For hours, and sometimes entire days, Jayme was forced to lie flat beneath a twin-sized bed that had been modified to become a cage. Around its base, the man stacked boxes, bins, barbell weights, and storage totes, creating a makeshift barricade that would trap her inside. She was told that if she moved, made a sound, or tried to escape, she would die. And worse, that others would too. He would sometimes turn up the radio or television to drown out any potential noise. Jayme was given limited food. No contact with the outside world. No access to sunlight. No idea if anyone was looking for her or if they even knew she was alive. The cabin became a coffin of silence and fear. Despite the darkness, Jayme was watching. Listening. Remembering everything. Because deep down, she was waiting for a moment. For a weakness. For a chance to break free. With Jayme Closs missing and her parents brutally murdered, the small town of Barron, Wisconsin was plunged into shock. But it wasn't just local authorities who responded. Within hours, the FBI, state investigators, and crime scene specialists descended on the area, launching a full-scale manhunt that would stretch across the nation. But what made this case terrifying wasn't just the violence, it was the precision. The killer left almost nothing behind. No fingerprints. No footprints. No tire tracks. There was no forced entry beyond the shotgun blast. No DNA. A total of 580 evidences were collected from crime scene, but the home had been targeted with surgical coldness. Investigators were desperate for answers. More than 2,000 tips flooded the hotline. Police combed ditches, forests, and abandoned properties. Boats were launched into nearby lakes. But each lead seemed to spiral into a dead end. Every person of interest was questioned and cleared. As the days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the story took over national headlines. Jayme's photo, bright-eyed and smiling, was broadcast across every news station, flyers, telephone poles, gas station doors, and social media feeds. The town of Barron tried to stay hopeful, but beneath the surface, a quiet dread was setting in. Experts began to speculate, was Jayme abducted by a stranger? Or had she been killed and her body hidden so well it would never be found? For 88 days, Jayme Closs lived in silent captivity, trapped under a bed, controlled by fear, and cut off from the world. But she never stopped watching. Never stopped thinking. And, most importantly, she never stopped hoping. Her captor left the house for what seemed like a routine errand. With her heart pounding, she forced herself to remain calm. She slid out from under the bed, carefully moving the bins and weights that had kept her trapped for so long, and ran in the forest. Eventually, she reached a quiet road. And that's when she saw her, a woman walking a dog. She looked at her and said, "I'm Jayme Closs. He killed my parents. I escaped." The woman led her to a nearby house for safety. Inside, they called 911. Just moments after Jayme was found, law enforcement moved fast. Within minutes, they pulled over just a few miles from the cabin. A 21-year-old man with no prior criminal record, no obvious motive, Jake Patterson, was caught. But when officers approached, Jake Patterson, the person who kidnapped Jayme Closs and murdered her parents, didn't resist. In fact, he said the words that confirmed everything. He spoke calmly, even coldly, describing the months he spent preparing, stealing license plates, shaving his head, and choosing a shotgun for the break-in because he believed it would leave fewer traces. He admitted everything, right down to how he kept Jayme hidden in his remote cabin for nearly 3 months. In May of 2019, justice was served. The man who had shattered a family and held a child captive was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. No deals. No leniency. The judge made it clear his crimes were beyond forgiveness, and he would never walk free again. As for Jayme, she didn't just survive. She endured. Bruised, traumatized, and forever changed, she was still alive. Today, Jayme lives quietly with her aunt, away from cameras and headlines. Jayme Closs was only 13, but she outsmarted a killer and found her way back to the world. Her case is a reminder that even in the darkest circumstances, there's always a flicker of hope, and sometimes, the victim becomes the hero.